Now, I've said it before, and I'll say it again. This show is impossible to predict. It's impossible to accurately say where an episode of Dungeon of Black Company will truly go. And I made the comparison that a lot of the intro content almost feels like an isekai novel's worth of content. They don't beat around the bush, they don't waste your time, there's constantly new and fresh ideas. And this episode, while watching, really enjoyed it. I was like, wow, this is probably one of the more typical episodes that this series has had, but it's entertaining. We're seeing our boy Kinji, he's kind of down in the dumps, realizing he can't use mana, he doesn't have a weapon that's, able to fight off these monsters. So it's kind of like that traditional, down in your luck, but you have that absurd comedy of getting drunk in the bar and then immediately coming to your senses, right? So it still had a fresh charm to it, even if it was recognizable at first glance. And then the last little bit of the episode comes in swinging, where you activate the gun because we have Rim's mana powering it up. We crack the password code, which is just QWERTY, which I don't even know how, but here we are. So we're like, okay, that's kind of interesting. I like the idea of pretty much getting New Game Plus gear at the beginning of the game, because even though he's been there for a while and he's definitely had a fair few adventures, he still is at the intro stage of any video game if we really look at it. So the fact that he gets this gun that we know damn well is going to one-shot probably a dragon if he wanted to, I was like, that's a fascinating twist, but it still was in the realm of, believable given what we've seen. And then they made it into an obsessive girlfriend, and I sat back and I said, this is the most glorious goddamn thing this show has shown me to date. And it's not just an obsessive girlfriend who is very clingy. She will kill you and herself if you try to abandon her and don't let her serve her duty. And the fact that if it doesn't have enough mana, it will just naturally activate a self-defense mechanism if there's danger around, which basically means all the mana-infused, clothing, everything they have, the gems, the jewels that they scavenge. So what do? My natural assumption would be get characters like Rim to gnaw on it every so often, but because Kinji doesn't have the ability to fuel it himself, and this thing is attached to him, what the hell are you supposed to do? Like that moment towards the end of the episode where Wanabe is trying to give him a knife because he's like, okay, I'll use this in really extreme circumstances, but I'll use another weapon before then. And she just destroys the knife because she's that clingy. I did not see this one coming. I really didn't. And I mean, at this point, I wouldn't be surprised if there's an episode before the show wraps up where there's baby gun somehow, and Kinji's like, I didn't do anything to you, how does this work? And she's like, yeah, but you pulled my trigger. This shit kind of writes itself in a way, and yet you still can't predict it. I'm blown away by what they accomplished with the point of, entering the last arc. Because a lot of times anime seasons, when they're divided into 12 episodes, they kind of have 3 acts, right? The first act, the first 4 episodes, the second act, the next 4, and then the last act is the last 4 episodes to 5, depending if it's a 12 or 13 series. And to see the potential of him being able to clear the cavern, but there probably not being a good outcome, because this kind of seems like the direction they're going, right? So, originally, when he was one-shotting those beasts, it looked rather good. He could easily clear the cavern and get a lot of materials. But because it needs mana, and apparently a couple of shots wastes all of its potential, it's going to absorb every piece of items in any which direction, right? So, all of the materials that can make him rich probably won't make him rich because it will fuel the gun, right? So, it's gonna be interesting. The show has a really good habit of making Kinji seem overpowered and completely useless all at the same time. The overpoweredness comes from, the idea of kicking off a show where he literally is living the ultimate neat life. He has more money and wealth than anyone should possibly have, and then immediately gets isekai'd and becomes a slave for a company. So then you say, okay, well, let's see how we go from here. And the way he manipulates, and the way he pretty much gets a lot of people on his side, but still has the short end of the stick. It lets the show have stakes without it feeling like he doesn't make progression or he doesn't one-up the enemy every so often. And it's gonna be interesting. I mean, I never thought a talking gun would be one of my favorite characters in this anime season, but here we are. I'm surprised no one spoiled this moment for me, because if there's been any moment that could have been spoiled, I think, that would have been like, oh, just you wait until you meet the talking gun. You know, those kind of like comments that are trying to hype you up but really are just spoiling you. I'm surprised no one or their mother, you know, hyped up the talking gun, because for me, this is the best content. But maybe this is the worst content for many people. I don't know. Either way, like, this show, I think, remains to be a goddamn gem. The potential for now, the last third of this anime, is definitely skyrocketed. I was really concerned on how they were going to naturally progress the cave in a fast enough way that it'd be entertaining with stakes, but also not so slow and boring that it drags. And the idea of most likely clearing the cave without much struggle, but using all of the resources to power said gun, so he's not going to be rich like he wants, is kind of a brilliant tactic, I have to say. And the whole idea of, like, you know, him getting drunk and just hating God, and then, you know, after he rants his heart out, he's pretty much good to go, and Wanabe's kind of impressed but dumbfounded by it. It's actually a pretty believable thing, you know, you pent up all that rage, you're just gonna blow a gasket, but once you let it out to someone, you kind of just regain your composure if you know what you're doing. And just the overall just direction of seeing him so bummed out, trying to find his mojo, to then finally getting it, and then immediately that New Game Plus joke weapon. I thought it was just going to be a New Game Plus level weapon. No, it's a New Game Plus joke weapon. It's like one of those weapons you get that one-shots every enemy, but every time you kill an enemy, it insults the player, right? Like, that's the equivalent of what it is, except you have a yandere girlfriend as a gun who also is going to absorb your clothing whether you like it or not, and I never thought I would say that in an anime video, but here we are. I mean, I generally don't know what I want to see now going forward, because, I mean, they pretty much have laid out the perfect card to make the rest of this anime work, but I just wonder, is the gun going to be more useful than it is going to be chaotic? Because we know it will be chaotic, right? Of course it will. But is there going to be points where, like, you know, he literally does get put on top, but then just something continues to pile down on him? I don't know, but, like, it's kind of great. I mean, this episode, I don't know how this anime does it. I really don't. I feel like this anime shouldn't work as well as it does. There should be at least a few bumps along the road. But whether it's our boy sitting on the couch, depressed as shit, acting like he owns the place, as Ranga and Rim are just playing, you know, pretend gangster. As then you just have the drunken scenes at the bar, to the, you know, passion of wanting to relive that original life, regretting even coming back to this one if this is how he's going to be treated, to ending with a suicide kind of like pact between gun and owner. And I'm dumbfounded by how good it works. Like, it works so damn well. Like, this show is far too solid, and it's insane that not more channels are covering it, which is weird to me, because this is the exact type of content that I remember all my favorite creators back in the day covering, because it's just so fun to talk with people. But at least we have been talking about it on the channel, because this shit's absolutely a blast, and there's no bad character. They just introduce more, and I absolutely love it. There's a cliffhanger that has me thinking it's gonna feel ominous. I'd probably immediately become comedic, but I guess we'll see. Let me know your thoughts and feelings down below, your favorite moment, and the hell did you think of a talking yandere suicide pact gun as a girlfriend, because I certainly loved it and didn't see it coming. Leave a like if you enjoyed, and subscribe if you're new around here. Since the next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.